So, as I said, when you're applying to schools, you should have an idea of what you want to do. You should have an idea of which research advisors you'd be interested in. You may have multiple choices at a given school, though. So when you arrive at the school, many schools will give you time to choose your research group once you arrive. It is not done so often anymore that you have to have a research advisor selected before you arrive. But most schools want you to have your research advisor selected within your first year for a PhD program. For a thesis master's, which is a shorter program, it might even be a shorter timeline than that. And I'm not sure on the thesis master's of what the time frame is for that. But usually with a PhD, you have at least the first semester, if not the whole first academic year, to choose your research advisor. Some graduate programs have rotation programs, where you actually will rotate through different groups. So maybe you have 3 research advisors that you're interested in at a particular school. You arrive and you'll spend a few weeks with each research group sort of embedded in the research group, learning more about what they do during that first year so that you can make a choice at the end of the year which group you want. So pay attention to the specific programs you're looking at and what their processes are for selecting research groups, whether they have rotation programs, whether this is something that you're interested in, especially if you have a school that you have more than one professor that you're interested in working for. One thing you might want to look into when you're looking at graduate schools is your qualifying exams. So if you're doing a PhD, you will have a qualifying exam. Almost every school does. It's not so for masters. Masters is a shorter program and does not tend to have a qualifying exam. The qualifying exam in a PhD program can be an ordeal. Different schools have different exams, and you probably want to take a look at what school has. The most useful qualifying exam I've ever heard of was at the University of Minnesota in one of their departments. They had a qualifying exam that was essentially for you to write a grant proposal. And then you presented that grant proposal to your committee. At MIT, where I went, the physics department had a 3-step graduate exam where you had 3 different exams you had to pass. Each was a 5-hour-long written exam for the first 2, and the third one was an oral exam in front of a panel on your specific area of research. It was tremendously difficult. Some graduate schools, although not as many as there used to be, would accept more graduate students into their programs than they could possibly put into research groups. And then they would assign them all to TA during the first year and weed them all out with a qualifying exam at the end of the first year. Now, this doesn't happen so often anymore, but if it does, you want to be aware of it. So look for the scuttlebutt online on the qualifying exam and how difficult it is, what the passing rate is, when it's taken, how many chances you have to pass it. If it's a single chance you take it or you're out kind of exam, that might not be a program you want to be looking at if you, for instance, have difficulty with exams. It can be really challenging, and every single program is different. So definitely look at that.